All right, so we have a pretty small call today. I just want to remind everyone to place yourself on mute. All right, welcome and thank you for joining the webinar on youth engagement and HIV prevention. We'll begin today's webinar with Veronica Orquilla from the DC Department of Health. Veronica, your line is open.
Hello, everyone. So I should get started?
Yes, go ahead. Just let me know.
Sure. So my name is Veronica Orquilla, and I'm the STD and Education Outreach Manager for the DC Department of Health's HIV/AIDS, STD, Hepatitis Administration. And I'm going to talk to you about our new youth social marketing campaign, which is SEXes. So about a year ago, me and my team were charged with starting a new social marketing campaign directed at young people, so young people between the ages of 12 and 24, so a pretty large swath of young people in DC. And we really started with the idea of wanting to create a campaign that was more than just messages around disease prevention. We had just launched our youth plan, which went from being an STD/HIV prevention youth plan to a youth sexual health plan. And the Department of Health and particularly our division, was taking more of a sex positive look at working around issues of sex and sexual health. So we took a year. We kind of said no more shame and no more scare tactics with young people. We weren't going to show any more of those scary pictures that are often included in things that we do with young people. So this is SEXes. Go ahead, next. So we started by doing focus groups with young people, and they said that sex is dirty, it's taboo, it's how you get STDs, it's for grown folks, and something you don't need to be thinking about. These are the messages that they were getting from adults, and these are also the messages that they were often telling each other. Some of those who were peer educators, this was some of the stuff that they were doing. So they themselves were coming from a very positive place when talking about sexual health. So we wanted to get to the point of it's normal, it's real, it's about trust, it's about communication, it's pleasurable, or so we hope, and it's something that we need to talk about. Next. So again, we said it's many things. It's physical, it's emotional, it's something we need to talk about. That became kind of our mantra as we were talking to young people about what is sex. Next. So SEXes DC movement. When we started talking about this, we wanted it to be more than just a campaign. We had a campaign in the past that we released, and we didn't really get that buy-in from our youth providers, from our community, from our young people, and we wanted to make sure that this time, from day one, we were engaged with our community providers who we have really good relationships with, that we were bringing in their thoughts and their feelings, and that we were really talking to young people over and over and over again, not just a one-time focus group and call it youth engagement. But our mission is to promote open-minded, judgment-free, and honest conversations about sex. Why was to create a sexually healthy generation of youth in DC. One of the things in talking to young people is that they wanted to be able to talk with adults without them saying, don't get pregnant, why are you asking? And just immediately going into all the negative. They wanted to be able to have conversations. And we really had to kind of push them a little bit to tell us what they wanted, because they just kept saying, we just want to be able to talk to them and ask them about how you don't get pregnant. But really, when we talked a little bit more with young people, they talked about really wanting to know about sex and how do they get that information. And it was definitely a lot of internet, but even them feeling that they don't know where to get the information from, talking about wanting to have a trusted source of where to get it from, and talked with them a lot about how do you know it's a trusted source. And they, as much as we often wanted to take the government logo off of things, they kept saying, well, then we know it's a trusted source. So it's a fine dance from putting it on the DC government website, but also making sure that they know it's a DC government supported website. So they wanted opportunities to learn and to communicate and to take care of themselves and to learn about where they could do that. This is a little bit more than just this isn't just a website and Facebook and social media. It's resources and it's events as well. And we've just kicked off and they're starting events and thinking about building tools to help create those open conversations. Next, please. So this is kind of what sex is. This past year, we thought we would launch a campaign within a couple of months, and it took a whole year because we just wanted to get it right, and we wanted to make sure that we were listening to young people. So we did a series of 5 focus groups with youth ages 12 to 20, and we did some adult feedback. We captured their feedback during events. We had an art contest with young people talking about their bodies, and we had adults come there and they gave some feedback on the first round of pictures and messaging that we had. We had meetings with adults, including youth providers, community-based organizations, youth leaders, and we did street outreach. We parked ourselves outside of supermarkets and asked adults as they were walking in to go grocery shopping or when they were coming out, how they felt about it and what they thought. And we got positive feedback, but when we did get feedback that we thought we needed to look at, we went and, kind of changed our messaging and brought it back to the young people and asked them what they thought. So again, I talked about how we've already shifted to a more sex-positive health and wellness model. Our adult social marketing campaign is about to follow our youth campaign and also make a shift. And I said our sexual health plan is now a sexual health plan as opposed to disease prevention. And it talked about the development of a trusted adult program as one of the activities. When we thought about that, this wasn't necessarily what we had envisioned, but this has become that, this trusted adult program. It's a youth-directed movement. We're listening and we're adapting. Again, it's taken a year, and it's not going to be stagnant. We're going to change, with the young people, and we brought in young people to build it with us. We have a youth advisory board. They have been amazingly vocal and gotten us to change things, and I've actually used them as my mouthpiece when I want to change things. So they are helping to develop it, helping it to promote it, and directing the project. We're just got to the point where we're training them to take over, and they'll be taking over the social media and going out and doing the promotion, where we won't be doing it. It'll really be in their hands, including the promotion and the training of adults. Next, please. So kind of what is sex? It's a space to watch. It's growing. In our first, I have some of that data of kind of in our first 3 days, we reached over 80,000 people with our advertising, and we've had over 3,000 people click through the links and go to the website from our Facebook ads. So people are sharing it. We're getting a lot of good feedback. And we started out at Youth Pride was our first event to introduce young people to the Sex Is campaign. We're moving into the high schools, and we're also reaching out to adults. So we have been to Best of Gay DC and got really great feedback, and we're going to First Sisters Only this week. So it's two-pronged. It's a youth campaign that's really involving adults because we need the adults to be able to receive young people when they're coming to them to have this conversation. And we need adults to be able to change their mindset and be able to talk to young people. One of the most poignant points a young person mentioned was you need to retrain the adults. And we really took her statement and thought about that as we've created this. In year 2, which has just started, we're going to be looking at building tools for communication. And our landing page for our website, which I'm not going to show you because I hope you'll go to it, which is sexisdc.org, is written to provide facts, humor, and resources. And we don't recreate the wheel. There are great websites out there with a lot of the information that we're trying to get to young people and to adults. So we send them to those websites. But before that, we give them very DC-specific information. And that's because a lot of times when we talk to young people, one of the main things that they say is that they don't know how to access resources. DC is really a resource-rich environment, but if young people still don't know how to get to their school-based health center, they still don't know the DC minor consent laws, we're still going to see young people with high rates of STDs, high rates of HIV when young people are in their 20s, and despite pregnancy rates going down, ours are still very high. So we really want to make sure that we have kind of a DC-specific slant to the information before we kind of send them off into the places where they find more information and knowledge and factual information. Next, please. So these are just some of our ads. So we talk about, we have kind of this rotating sex is, and we had the young people brainstorm what is sex. So it's healthy, it's real, it's communication, it's trust, it's scary, it's fun. We kind of had a road show, and everywhere we went, we had people write on these big, huge boards what sex is to them. And from there, we've kind of started our first round of the campaign. So obviously, sex is healthy is the first track. Next one. Sex is communication. So this is both communication with your partners, with your friends, with the adults in your life. So just talking openly and honestly. Again, this is the big one, the non-judgmental dialogue around sex. Next. Sex is pride. So we have 3 different images. We were set to kick off for Youth Pride in June, and our Youth Pride got moved to October. So we had the chance to do a couple different Pride ones, and kind of one where they're a little bit older, and then we went with one that was a little bit younger, and we've definitely had some strong reactions, both on the positive and the negative of having young boys with the Pride, and that's what we really want to have, is we want to open up that dialogue and allow people to talk about that and why they love it or why it makes them feel uncomfortable. And just to kind of go through, we have the kind of lines representing our metro, so making it very DC specific, and we have these kind of icons that we've worked with the young people to kind of group all the information together. Next. And sex is real. So again, this is something that's happening. So for those adults who want to either say they just shouldn't be having it, or they shouldn't be thinking about it, or they shouldn't be talking about it, realizing that it is happening. Young people are thinking about it, and it's really, we need to be prepared to have those conversations with them, and they're asking us for that. That's one of the key pieces we're stressing with adults as we're going out, is that this is coming from young people. This wasn't devised by us without young people, and they're saying they want to talk. They don't just want an app that tells them, despite what I think a lot of adults want to think. Next. So sex was an event. We partnered with, for our kickoff event, we partnered with Ben's Chili Bowl, which is a tried and true trusted institution in DC. The Ali family has had everybody come through and eat their chili dogs and their cheese fries. So they partnered with us, which was really great. It gave us some legitimacy with adults who may have said, what are you doing talking about sex? We have condoms, and you have kids, wearing shirts that say sex on them. And so we had a radio station that's partnered with us, WPGC, and then we had Ben's Chili Bowl. So kind of really bringing in this idea of trusted adults are bringing in not only just parents and family, but bringing in community members that are respected, bringing in religious leaders that are respected, bringing in the schools, and kind of that these are all of our children, and it's our job to support them in whatever way we can. So while, the Ali family may not be talking about sex with all the young people of DC, just hosting this event and saying that they're behind us and they're behind them is really important. And then you can see we have some t-shirts and kind of swag to get young people and adults just starting to share the message. And so they're kind of our walking billboards to get people to be like, what's that? And go on our website and learn a bit more. And next. And last is that sex is uncomfortable. Immediately, as soon as we put up the Eventbrite, we got an email asking us why we were having a sex party with young people and adults at a bar. So we're getting prepared, and we are prepared to have these conversations. So again, it's not a bar, it's Ben's Chili Bowl. It's a trusted DC institution. It was a fun event. It brought in young people and adults and brought a lot of conversations. And then, we put up our Facebook ads, and almost immediately, like I said, the Sex is Pride with the 2 young men, some comments already. So we're working on how to engage people in dialogue around that, but also being respectful and making it a safe place for young people and for parents to learn. So we're ready for the challenge. We knew that when we decided to go with a sex positive campaign and to be as open and honest as possible, we were going to come up with some challenges and some people and some naysayers, but really finding those adults who want to be the adults that are on board with us, and then the young people, bringing them together so that we kind of have an army of the willing to start out with us. Next page. So our next steps is our continued social marketing, engaging new partners. So looking at our religious institutions, we have quite a few coalitions that we're going to engage, some of our business partners, and our community-based organizations, and again, our schools. We're doing a photo shoot event to have our campaign look more DC. So instead of using stock photography, using young people in DC and adults and parents, and making it an event to kind of, again, bring in more buy-in and get more people hooked into the campaign. Some trusted adult events. So again, training adults in a same fun format that we do with young people around how to have open and honest conversations about sex, not just to talk about all the horrific things that happen when you have sex, but the pleasure part, or the scary parts, or the emotional parts. A youth advisory board will be taking over, and then looking at our process evaluation, which is looking at knowledge, attitudes, perception, going back to our focus groups, and doing more focus groups. We're thinking about text messaging surveys, doing a larger scale survey midway through this 4 years of this this launch, and then looking at our YRBS data, where there's a question which is about trusted adults both in the school and in your community, and so looking at that data over time to see what the results are, and if we have young people are feeling that they have more adults to go to, and young people who feel that they know where the resources are and have access to them, because that's really what this is about, is making sure that young people have a place and people to go to be able to take control and care of their own sexual health. And so I think that's it. I hope that you will go to sexisdc.org and learn more about us. There's some fun information on there, and it's going to keep growing. If you have any questions, this is my contact information. And thank you all very much.
Okay, we'll hold the questions until the end. Just give me 1 second, then I'll pull up Kenny's presentation. Okay, Kenny, can you see your presentation?
Can
Okay.
you hear me?
Yes, I can. Feel free to go ahead whenever you're ready.
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. My name is Candy, actually. My presentation is from Impact. Impact is about maximizing prevention, access, care, and treatment at the Baltimore City Health Department. And so this presentation is about the lessons we learn engaging the HBCU students. HBCU means Historically Black College and Universities. And so I'm just going to go to the next slide. So we've been trying really to get involved with the community, especially the young people, about the messages of prevention and care. But one thing that's been reoccurring that has been coming up now and then is the issue of stigma, and which is a wicked social problem that we need to really address. Stigmatization, homophobia, stereophobia, all of these things have been identified as a social cultural determinants of health. And so this is a major thing we are challenged by at the health department. Next slide, please. Yeah. So as you can see, stigma is very insidious. It's not something that is tangible that you can see. So addressing that amongst young people is a bit challenging. So we decided that we had to have some key pointers of how to know that we're actually doing something. So it has to be something that is viable. It has to be something that is feasible. It has to be something that is desirable. And so these three things are going to be things that are going to help us to measure whether we're doing something right or not. It has to be something people like. And so if you go to the next slide, so we created a model, and this model is called Baltimore in Conversation. It is basically a dialogic tool. We're using dialogue to talk with three different set of people. We're looking at community. We have dialogue with the people in the community, and we have dialogue with people outside of the community. Then we have dialogue with the health providers, because we believe that before now, most of our dialogue with the community has been more of one way and just targeting the LGBTQ plus community. But with Baltimore in Conversation, we're looking at a holistic conversation where we're talking to more than just the LGBTQ community, because stigma does not just happen in vacuum. It doesn't just happen to me because I'm part of LGBTQ people. It happens because there are people that perpetuate it, who perpetuate it. So that's why we created this model, which we call the Baltimore in Conversation model. Next slide. So we map the LGBTQ community, and this is not like definitive. This is not like final. It's something we still keep doing as we talk to people, as we have dialogue. We begin to discover new demography. We begin to discover a new set of people: the bartenders, those who like to go to the bar, the hood watchers, those who are usually in the hood. You know, there are some areas like the East Baltimore, the West. You know, some of these people they have their identity. The spirit boys are the people that are the church people. They like to talk about church, about singing, about anything church. The regional folks, you know, the DMV, there are people who like to go clubbing in Philly. There are people who like to go clubbing in DC. And all of this, what is connecting most of us is going to be something like the Hamtramck or, you know, the Penn Station, the Union Station. And so there are kids that you find here. And then there are the college kids. And we have the advocates. The advocates are the people we always preach to. And I'm talking about your peer navigator, the people who have been part of your programs. These people, they know everything about sex. They know everything about prevention. They know all these things. And you see them at every meeting. The Jack brothers, of course, the people on the social media have. The Craigslisters, Craigslist, homeowners, those who want to tell you about what they have. The list goes on. But today, I'm just going to focus on the college kids, how we're able to engage with them. Next slide. So our tool at Baltimore in Conversation has been storytelling. Storytelling to us is something that helps us to understand people because it is the most traditional way of knowing people. It is much bigger than just focus group because it helps us. It allows people to tell their stories in a way that present who they are to the world. And so there are two types of storytelling we do at Baltimore in Conversation. We have the visual storytelling, then we have the verbal storytelling. So today also I'm going to just focus on the visual storytelling. The visual storytelling, what we're doing under that is called Project Presence. Presence is about visibility, representation, identity. You know, how you want people to see you, how you want to represent, you know. And so that's what we're doing with Project Presence. And I'm going to be sharing with you what we did with that with the HPC. Next slide. So before we started, we did casting. We spoke with people on campuses. We used a lot of peer-to-peer, you know, talk to people. And then during casting, you have people who are very interested. Oh, I want to do this. I want to be part of this photo project, you know, this photo exhibition and all of that. Then towards the end of the casting or when people have registered, you find out a lot of people begin to drop out. Because of what? Because of stigma. This is campus, this is college. People begin to say, well, I never thought about this. My picture is going to be up for exhibition. I don't want people to know if I'm part of this community or not. So this is a major issue we have faced, you know, during pre-program. And the issue of trust. People need to trust us to know that we actually are coming from a place of authenticity. Next slide. So the making of this project. So when we get the models or the volunteers together, we tell them we want representation. So people come together, we do a photo shoot, we pick places where they choose to tell their stories. And mind you, we're not telling people to tell us stories about HIV. We're telling people to represent what they stand for. Who are they? What is your story? So people want to tell stories about maybe where they came from, about how they came to accept who they are, and all of that. So all of this become part of the making, and it allows us to understand this community. So during the making, we bring all these pictures we have taken, we bring it together for a workshop. If you go to the next slide. So yes, at workshops, you see all the participants, they begin to unpack the stories from the images, from the pictures. So we use the photos that we have taken to inform the workshop. Next slide. So we begin to see a lot of set narratives. People want to look at the images that they are taking and begin to say, oh, this is my story. This is what's happening in this picture. Now, all of this allows us to open up new conversations, because normally if you just talk to people, what's going on with you? How are you addressing stigma in your area? Like I said, stigma is very insidious. It's very, intangible. But with this kind of photo project, people are able to begin to talk about why they are wearing what they're wearing, what happened during this photo shoot, and we're able to see, or we're able to listen and get to know the community better. Next slide. So while we're doing this workshop, we give them a kind of a sheet where people begin to visualize what stigma look like in their community. And if you go to the next slide, you see one example of what somebody sketched. Yeah, that's a sketch from one of our workshops. And of course, you know what that means, that this is where stigma happens in the community where I live on campus. Next slide. And also during the workshop, we have role play. Participants role play how they feel when they have been stigmatized, or how stigma really happened. Mind you, again, we say stigma is very intangible. So what we're trying to do is to concretize it, to make it something we can talk about and feel. And so during this role play, we also, dramatize how you can counter it. Other people participate. So we use a lot of theater of the oppressed. I don't know, for those of you who know about theater of the oppressed. So we use that as a tool to help during this workshop. Next slide. The stories. So I'm going to show you a few of the pictures that are taken, and I'm going to see how I can curate it as much as I can do justice to them. Next. So this is one of the pictures, photo exhibit that I really love. This is one of the models, also one of our volunteers, John. During this photo shoot, we normally ask all our volunteers to come with something for that. We don't give them, an idea of what to look like, because this is all about self-identity. So, he came with a flag, and he said he wanted to show the flag, because on campus, a lot of time it's not easy for you to identify as an LGBTQ plus person. And if you look at this picture very well, you will see that he's wearing a pink short. That means a lot. That's a powerful statement, wearing a pink shirt on campus, where it's a Black college, where it's a lot of patriarchy. It's powerful to be able to stand up there to say, look, this is who I am. Pink doesn't necessarily mean that you're gay, but it's a lot about, breaking the norms and standing out for who you are. And having all the colors of the flag is a powerful statement of visibility and representation. Next slide. This is another image from the exhibit, from the exhibition. You will see here, this is someone that is bending gender. I remember when I met this model during the shoot, at first I was using a she for him when we were casting, and he kept correcting me, like, no, I'm a he. And then we began to talk. And during the shoot, it came, this way, all made up. And if you look further into this picture, if you can look further, I don't know if your slide is getting it, you will see that this is an open space where there are seats like a theater. And yes, he is sitting there to say, look, I don't care what the world thinks about me, but this is who I am. And, I don't have to fit into the box or stereotype of gender. So this is a powerful statement and powerful exhibit. Next slide. Now, this is one of the photos in the exhibit that I really love. This model is actually wearing my sweater. So it was very cold. It was winter time. We were shooting, and she is an ally. She's not one of the LGBTQ person on campus. And then, she asked to use the sweater, and then she used it. And there, the photographer and myself said, we can capture this moment. This is a moment that, reminds us that even the allies, they also need our protection. Sometimes we think we're the one who need protection from allies. And so this was a reversal of role, and this is very significant during the photo shoot. Next picture. So this is the last picture we took during the photo shoot. And this guy, we couldn't, pin him down. We couldn't get him on campus. And guess where we found him? He was at his boyfriend's place, and we had to go meet him there. And this began to tell us a story of personal space. Like, a lot of time, people are not just where we think they will be. Like, everybody should be in college or wherever. People need to breathe, and they have places where they go. And here is where he's like a king. It's where he's able to set himself free. It's his personal space. And during the exhibition, I remember this became a major topic, the issue of personal space. And all of that we would not have known if we're just talking to people by focus group. This happened because we're using images to talk, and we're allowing people to express who they are in front of the camera. Next slide. So if you look at this image very well, I'm sure there's something you would see that is significant. So this is Morgan State, and this is one of their major monuments. And while we were editing these images, the models told us that this monument is very important, and we have to treat it, with care. So that begins to tell us that as we tell stories of these people in colleges, we have to remember how proud they are about their colleges or their heritage or where they are. And we have to, that's part of the identity, where they're coming from. So the model is good looking, beautiful, but we also have to, as much as we're blurring the image in the background, we have to realize it's also part of the story. Yes. Next slide. So this is something we begin to see as we begin to take more pictures. There is this common hand to heart gesture that we often see amongst the young people. We have seen that to be from the hip hop culture. I don't know where it's coming from. We are open-minded to know. If you go to the next slide, you will see the same thing. Yes. So we saw this repeated itself like a pattern. And even as I'm speaking with you, we don't have answers to why, but it is something we actually took note of during the photo shoot. Next slide. This is a slide that also goes back to the ally. They're like mother hen waiting in the shadow. And this is what actually she said during the workshop, that as an ally, this is how she feels. She looks out for LGBTQ plus friends in the community to be sure they're not being harassed or nobody is bullying them. So that's the mother hen picture waiting in the shadow. Next slide. So during the exhibition, this is what happened. These are the exhibits. You can see the exhibits right there, right there on easels. And then people look at these exhibitions and they begin to interact with them. They have a post-it note. They use a post-it note to write their own reflections of what they see. And we begin to have more conversations that we would never have had if we were just talking to people. Next slide. Yeah, so the photo exhibitions allow people to talk about bigger things that we might have missed in normal research. And we were able to see where stigma actually happened, how people address it variously through dialogue. Next. So sometimes our exhibition spaces begin to look like church. People get really charged, and there's always like the hallelujah kind of thing, because it gets really amazing. People get inspired because there's something about storytelling, especially visual storytelling, that breaks barrier, and it opens up, the gateway of things that we have kind of blocked or we don't want to talk about. Next. And of course, we look at power technology. The photo project also allows most of this story to go online. People begin to take selfie of their images or their friends, and they begin to share on Instagram. And remember, it's not like a campaign. We're not advertising, but people are beginning to share their stories of how they overcame bullying, how they do that. And that's very empowering, using the power of technology and social media. And that begins to go, kind of viral in their own environment or community. Next slide. And during this event, we laugh a lot because we're not talking about human immunodeficiency virus, which is a little kind of mouthful. This is an event where we talk about everything. We talk about HIV, but in a way that is more human. And people are able to relate it to their lives, to their friends, how they were being treated when they go to the clinic, in the school or colleges where they are. So it's all about the LOL moment that we have that's really amazing. Next. Platform. This is very important. It's very important that we give these people time to speak truth to power. During this exhibition, we have people from HBCU who are like leaders. We have, people like vice presidents or very important power, power that be, who attended some of these events. And this is a time for the students to actually speak back to them, And here we have to step back and allow them to really speak. I remember this very exhibition, they spoke about the clinic, how they've been treated at the clinic and how things can be changed. And I realized, I just heard that one of the models or the volunteers have been hired, to work, for some of these places or organizations that can effect changes on campus. And that's amazing. Next, please. So after all said and done, we let the story breathe. We just step back. We allow people to interact with the stories, and we just breathe. We just let it breathe and let people take the meaning they want to take from it. Next. And this is where we gain from it as a program. We still need to advertise PrEP. We still need to talk about prevention and all of that. So we use the images from these exhibitions to go on big media, traditional media like billboards, like, Metro. And so we use the same images and we just layer, messages about PrEP and all of that on this. And that is how we blow up, a very simple act of taking pictures. Next. How do we evaluate what we do? We have evaluation partner at Johns Hopkins, and they use the focus group after all of this to talk to the models or to talk to people who participated at this event. We use events feedback. We look at all the post-it notes that we gather from these events. We analyze them using qualitative data, method, and we look at social media comments and we analyze them. I'll show you just one. Next slide. So for instance, this is social media posts from last 2 weeks when UCHAPS was here, Baltimore. And this is another post. If you go to the next slide. Yeah, I want to take your time to read this. Now, this is something a traditional campaign can never do. These are the models using their platform, using these pictures that we have taken to talk to their friends, their peers on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. And that's how we begin to effect change in our community. Because these are stories, these are real stories, real people, real pictures. And that's one of the benefits of this very project. Next slide. So thank you very much. These are members of the Impact team. And if you have any questions, my email is there, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kehinde and Veronica. So we'll open the lines up. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question if you have one. Okay. While we wait for questions to come in the chat box or by phone, Veronica and Kehinde, could you let us know the website for both of your projects?
Sexesdc.org, and we're also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at SexesDC.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we're mostly on social media, even though we have a website, which is Baltimore in Conversation, but it's not really our major focus. Our major focus is to be on social media. So we're on Facebook as Baltimore in Conversation. And we're also on Instagram as Baltimore in Convoy. Yeah, you can find us there.
Okay, great, perfect. And the lines are open. Feel free to ask a question. Okay. And Veronica, I have just one more question. During your presentation, you mentioned resources for the youth and for parents. Can you let the attendees know where they could find those resources and what other resources may be out there?
All the resources we send, so if you come to the website, it links you to other resources that we spent time talking with young people, and some of them are ones that people know. It's Answer, or it may be a local DC resource. And then in our year 2, we're really looking at what is the tool that helps guide conversation. When we're working with a vendor, a contractor, and it started with a guidebook, and I was like, well, I don't really want to work a guidebook. Is it an app? Is it a game? Is it? So we're really working on that. We're going to be talking to parents and young people. So it's kind of why I tell people to watch this space. We don't have it all planned out because we're building things as people come to us and as we learn more and people share more to figure out what works, as opposed to just having a 4-year set plan. We're trying to be more iterative with the process.
Okay, great, thank you. And the lines are open if you'd like to ask a question. I'll pause here if anyone wants to ask one. Okay, everyone's super shy today. Kehinde, before we end the call, would you like to mention your upcoming event for Baltimore in Conversation?
Sure, thank you. So our next project presence is focusing on gender. And here we've been working with members of the transgender community. And so we're actually starting photo shoot in the next few days. We've been having a lot of workshop with them. So, and the event is going to be on December 1. That's the World AIDS Day. And then on the 30th of November, we have our storytelling event. Our storytelling event, like I mentioned, is our verbal storytelling activity where we bring providers and the community together to share story by the fireplace, the traditional way. And so on the 30th of this month, of November, we're going to have the Baltimore Conversation Storytelling event at Regina Lewis Museum from 5:30 p.m. And the following day, which is What a Day, is going to be Project Presence, the gender edition. And you're all invited.
Great, thank you. And are there any other questions?
Well, Kenny, this is Veronica, and seeing that we're right down the street from each other, I would like for us to have a conversation about how we can work together, because I think we're kind of doing a lot of the same stuff.
Right.
Baltimore and DC are not that far.
Yeah, we're brothers and sisters, so yeah, please, let's talk outside of this webinar.
Absolutely.
I look forward to that.
Cool.
Okay, if there are no other questions, please take about 10 seconds to complete a 2-question survey. The link is in the chat box. Just click on the link, take 10 seconds to let us know your feedback about today's webinar. And that's it. I just want to say before we go, thank you to Kehinde and Veronica for sharing your work with us. Thank you guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.